Jane did not only finally get her awakening potential and a new and fancy partner in Velina, but now also Remielle. And with new teams come new findings, fully shifting her weapons and her value. But are her buffs any good? Well, let's find out today. Welcome, I'm Rivyn Elowen, but you may call me Rivy, and this is your complete updated in-depth guide to Jane Doe. Jane is a physical on-field anomaly DPS who specializes in frequent dodges and high damage assaults by causing them to crit. And she just got buffed. Well, sorta. Usually, I would first summarize her buffs, but they are so less and honestly also not that important, so we can do that in 4 sentences instead. Her basic 6 and EX special now count as dash attack, helping you in maintaining her signature weapon, especially during stun. Her spin to win can now also trigger a perfect dodge, yet again helping in maintaining her signature as well. She gained access to a new second EX special during her passion state, but it is not all too different from her regular EX. And lastly, her awakenings grant her an additional 30% crit damage for assaults procced by Jane. The latter is actually very important in its wording, as the additional 30% are only applied if the assault is procced by herself. Since assault vortexes are triggered by the vortex owner, or in other words currently Velina, the assault vortexes do not profit of this increase. This also applies to Remielle's Luminize, which is not classified as an assault and hence does not profit of this either. And assaults procced by other team members, such as Alice for example, do also not gain this additional increase. Or in other words, her buffs are, unfortunately, not very meaningful for her best teams. Jane has her own unique resource called Passion Stream, which is indicated right below her HP bar as per usual. Whenever she inflicts damage, she either gains or loses passion, and using a defensive assist or triggering a perfect dodge with her will always generate passion. When she reaches 100 passion, the bar will turn red and she enters the passion state. While in this state, inflicting damage will then consume passion instead. When outside of the passion state, indicated by the bar being blue, she will accumulate passion when dealing damage instead. Furthermore, while Jane is in the passion state, her anomaly buildup is increased and she gains flat combat attack based on her anomaly proficiency. Each point of anomaly proficiency exceeding 120 will grant her 2 attack up to a maximum of 600, which means this passive caps out at 420 AP. Whenever Jane enters the passion state, she also gains access to a one-time use of Salcho Jump. Jane can hold a maximum of 1 Salcho Jump at M0, and repeatedly re-entering the passion state will override any Salcho Jumps you currently hold. Whether or not Salcho Jump is currently available is indicated by the red dot in her resource bar. Salcho Jump is different from her other damaging abilities, as it will not actually consume passion during her state, but instead always generate that. As for Salcho Jump, holding down her basic attack has Jane start spinning for a few seconds, while also moving at a much slower speed. During this time, if attacked, she will automatically trigger a perfect dodge and then enter Vital View. Lastly, she also features a 6-part basic attack, and her basics do what they are supposed to do. But her basic 6 does count as a dash attack now, which makes maintaining her signature weapon stacks much easier. Let's talk about her dash attacks and dodge counter, because she has in fact 2 of them each. 1 dash attack and a dodge counter outside the passion state, and again a different version during the passion state. While her out of passion state, dodge counters and dash attacks have a very fancy wording where it will behave differently depending on whether or not you are casting the dodge counter after 1 or 2 consecutive dodges. It essentially does not matter much, since the anomaly build up on both is the same, and that is what we mainly care about. She then also features a special dash and a dodge during the passion state, but those behave as we would expect them to do. Her special, which we will never use, does what it is supposed to do, and so do her quick assists, defensive assists, and assist follow-ups, so we will not cover them any further. Her EX has high anomaly build-up and more importantly now also counts as a dash attack, but otherwise does not do anything special. Jane does also now get access to another version of her EX during the Passion state, which deals slightly more damage in days and has also just slightly more anomaly build-up, but is functionally the same as a regular EX. Using either of her Chain or Ultimate will have Jane directly enter the Passion state, but because they consume 35 Passion upon use, we are left with a 65% Passion after the skill ends. Because both of them instantly enter the Passion state, they will also give access to another Sulture Jump. Hitting an enemy will inflict a negative status called Nod, and Nod enemies have an extended duration on flinch, as well as causing assaults on these enemies being able to critically strike. This includes assaults triggered by other team members, such as Alice, and also applies to assault vortexes. The crit damage for assault is fixed at 50%, and the crit rate again depends on her anomaly proficiency, which means she will reach 100% crit rate at 375 AP. Since her Passion state wants her ideally at 420 AP in combat, however, this should usually not be an issue, but it is the first of her 2 breakpoints to hit. Lastly, Jane requires either an anomaly character or an agent of the same faction, and when that condition is met, her anomaly build-up rate is increased by up to 35%. Basically, all of Jane's damage comes from her assaults, and with Velena now also Vortex, albeit that damage is attributed to Velena, and so it is reflected in the team damage distribution as well. As for her skill priority, since her damage is anomaly based and anomaly infliction does not scale with skill levels, we want to focus first and foremost on her core, then her chain and assist, followed by her special, basics, and lastly dodge. Anomaly teams do care about the days, and leveling her skills will give us higher days, so I would recommend leveling all of her skills at least up until level 8. Higher is of course better. As already teased, she gains up to an additional 30% crit damage to her assaults if triggered by herself, but most of the team's damage in nowadays age comes from either Velena's assault vortexes, Remielle's luminize, or ideally both. Overall, free damage is free damage, but her awakening potentials are rather, well, not so great. Jane's best in slot weapon is still Practice Perfection. Well, compared to an R1 Stinger that is, but here's the catch. Well, two actually. First up, an R5 Stinger is quite literally a 30% team damage increase compared to its R1. And given that an R5 Stinger is more or less free-ish to obtain nowadays and she can now maintain its stacks rather effortlessly, I would not advertise for Practice Perfection anymore. Secondly, Practice Perfection does not give any anomaly proficiency. That means when running this weapon, it is very difficult to hit her 420 AP requirement. That is, unless you play her with User or Velena, and more importantly, User's or Velena's signatures weapons respectively, ideally both. TLDR being get sharpened Stinger copies. Especially for Velena teams, it is a rather insane increase, and with her being able to maintain it easily, now even during stun, there is no reason anymore to run something else instead. Especially not if that something else actually costs money. If you have neither, however, Weeping Gemini is still the go-to fully free-to-play choice. Please note that Sharpened Stinger might not be the best choice for Jane within a mono physical team, as you might not be able to maintain full uptime on the weapon. Jane's best in slot set is generally still a 4-piece Fanged Metal. Well, unless you play her with Alice, in which case a 4-piece Hormone Punk is another option, but it also isn't as brain dead to play as opposed to Fanged, and especially with Remielle now being a thing, literally preventing you to switch into her, basically also impossible to time as you will need to parry on Jane. Hence, for most people I would not recommend it. For the 2-piece options, 2-piece Puffer is still her best choice when running pen ratio in slot 5, but otherwise either a 2-piece Freedom Blues, Chaos Jazz, Astral Voice, Hormone Punk, Phaeton's Melody, or even Whitewater Ballad will work well enough. If you cannot hit the 420 AP breakpoint, again that is in combat, a 2-piece Freedom Blues or Chaos Jazz are her best choices. For her main stats, a standard layout of Anomaly Proficiency in slot 4, Pen Ratio in slot 5, and Anomaly Mastery in slot 6, are the best choices, but if you happen to have insane substats on another slot 5 option, such as physical damage or attack percent, it might still win out. It is also rather common for players to undervalue attack, so you might want to consider attack percent in slot 5 if you are low on that. Try to aim for at least 2600 attack in the stat screen, ideally more. As for her substat priority, focus first and foremost on anomaly proficiency, then attack percent, and lastly flat attack and flat pen. Jane's M1 is not only a great quality of life increase in terms of maintaining her passion state, but also a fantastic increase in damage. The same can be said about her Mindscape 2, which is still up to date one of the biggest damage gains for Mindscape 2s in the game. It is also one of the most important Mindscapes if you want to play her as a support in monophysical teams with Alice. And it also matters for Velena. But anyway, her M3 and M5 exist, her Mindscape 4 increases all anomaly damage by 18% for the entire team, and given this is an M4, it is actually pretty good. Her Mindscape 6, however, is unfortunately just bad. Jane has still one of the best early Mindscapes available in the game, and if you can get her M2 or even better M4, she is a force to be reckoned with. Jane got a massive uplift with the release of Wind, Windswept, and hence also Velena, and still pairs incredibly well with Yuzua in the 3rd slot. However, with Remielle being a thing now, Yuzua can finally be free for other teams. However, the difference between Yuzua and Remielle is honestly not all too big, as Jane can easily lose her signature double engine stacks during the endless cutscenes of Remielle, making Yuzua still a somewhat competitive choice for Jane and her signature specifically. Without Velena and Remielle, Nangongyu can still do great deeds for Jane. However, Yuzua is basically required here, as Jane does lose out on her additional ability in this team, and without Yuzua, Jane's anomaly build-up becomes so low, you are not gonna be happy about it. With Remielle now allowing for triple anomaly teams, we can finally mix and match basically any agents we want. Means Jane is back on the table with Bernice or Vivian as well if you desire to play so, but please note it is worse than basically any Velena team. Lastly, a monophysical team with Alice needs to be mentioned as well, and Remielle is the new best in slot for the 3rd slot here. Jane's M2 is somewhat required for this team to perform great, and it pairs absolutely well with Alice's at Mindscape 1 and 2 as well. Jane is still a very good choice and has only gotten much better over time, albeit her awakening potentials are rather lackluster. Without any Mindscapes and a premium team to accompany her, you will notice a lack in performance, and Piper or Alice might perform better for you if you do not have Velena, Nangongyu, Remielle or Yuzua, or ideally 2 of those 4. Her best weapon is arguably her signature, with an insane uplift from refinements, and the weapon is more or less free to obtain, even if it takes some time to do so. Jane is also relatively easy to play, deals great damage, and, well, jiggle physics. Lastly, she also has some of the best early Mindscapes in the entire game, but they are also somewhat needed to keep up with the newer premium units nowadays. And with that, we are at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment on your thoughts on Jane and her new buffs, and of course, join the Discord. We also have merch now, yippee! A link is in the description. A special thanks goes to my YouTube and Patreon members who make this content possible. If you wish to support me, you will find a link to my Patreon in the description, or simply click the join button right below this video. And as always, I appreciate all of you and wish you a great day. Peace!